Cheers. In front of me, I have my original Amiga 500, the one I had as a child. I bought this for my own money with some help from my mother as well. And this Amiga was quite broken because of a battery damage, but I fixed it. So after the repairs, I have made some modifications to it to make it work better for me. So let's first have a look at what I did with it. After using a lot of time to clean up after a battery damage, I finally got the i500 Rev 6 to boot, but it wasn't stable at all, crashed loading anything. My troubleshooting started with the Amiga test kit, and I ran a memory scan without any problems found. But when checking this CIA chip, I got this error, and it changed when I moved to the other socket. And after putting in a new CIA, there was no errors, and the Amiga was working like it should. My next plan was to get 1 megabyte of chip RAM. As you can see, it only has half a meg. That gives me a lot of problem when I run IMP, because a lot of the modules need 1 megabyte or more to be playable. So to be able to use 1 megabyte of chip RAM, we first need to cut this trace on JP2 and bridge it here. Luckily for me, I have this microscope to help me, because my sight is not the best. But I managed to cut this trace with a knife like this. And then test it for continuity, and the bridge is gone. And then I use my solder iron to bridge the other 2 pads. And then a quick retest, and everything is like it should be. We also need to cut JP7A to make this work like this. Checks for continuity. And then test that the Amiga still works, and it does, but it still only have half a meg of memory. So let's add the memory to the memory slot like this. And now, fingers crossed, let's test. Should remember to add the drum roll here. It's alive, and it has 1 megabyte of chip RAM. Success. Next on my list is to add the frame throwers and the PiStorm. I'm going to use the frame thrower to get only 1 HDMI output. My plan is to use a Raspberry Pi 3A, but I don't have that yet. It's on the way in the post. So I'm going to use this 3B while I wait. So that's why I need that extension cable. The frame thrower is connected to the camera input on the Raspberry Pi with this ribbon cable like this. I'm not a huge fan of these types of cable. Feels like I'm going to ruin them. But I managed to get it connected without breaking anything. And then we need to take out the knees gently with a screwdriver like this. Just twist your way through like this. Do not bend any pins. And then we add the knees to the frame thrower like this. Double check that all the pins are on the correct spot. Then add the frame thrower with the knees back in its place like this. The 68,000 needs to go out. And then we can put the PiStorm in its place. and then connect the Raspberry Pi in its place. I need to use this cable now, as I'm still waiting for my Raspberry Pi 3A. So I'll just put it in this case for some protection for now. I have this SD card with a PiStorm setup that I'll test it with. It's an old version. And it works. I still need to set up the frame thrower though. To get the frame thrower to work, you need the newest M68K and add this Unicam settings to the CMD line TXT on the PiStorm setup. And then boot into my real setup and test IMP, which now works with 1 megabyte of chip. And if we now reboot, the OCS output should come out of the same HDMI cable. Let's see if it do, and it does. And we now have a working frame thrower setup. So that's the hardware covered. I wanted an black Amiga back in the days. That was high on my list. With black keyboard in a black tower and a black monitor, and just like the very cutting edge of the PCs we're starting to have. I loved that look. Nowadays we seem to want the beige, but back then it was the opposite. I wanted the black. So I wanted to do something different with this Amiga, and I wanted to make a computer I want to use. The Amiga 500 in its stock setup is not a computer I'm very likely to actually use, because as I've said before, I've never really played much games. So I decided to make a tower version of it, and now let's see how that came together. This is the tower I plan to put the Amiga 500 inside. It is a simple black, clean, industrial looking tower. It is a standard ATX case. Back in the days I would just place it on the back like this and use a saw to make a hole right here. But I want to make this a bit more pretty than that. So my plan is to place the motherboard here and have a breakout board. But this needs to go. It's in the way. And it's not screwed, so I need to use a drill. And there, it's out. Let's put this in the trash. Next up is to remove this stands to place an ATX motherboard and add this plastic mounts. To get rid of the extension cable, I'm replacing the Raspberry 3B with this 3A, this one. To mount the motherboard, I'm using a very strong double-sided tape, and I've added some tape here to protect it from shorting out the memory extension. So I'll just place the motherboard in place like this. I only have one shot at this, so when I drop it, it stays where I put it. No way I'm going to get this out without a heat gun and lots of struggles, so let's be sure to get it where we want. My plan was to make this a bit pretty, so I'm using this 3D printed cover for the ATX opening, where I mount all the port extensions. The original model was made by beige, is the new black, and I've just modified it to cover my needs. My plan was to get a proper keyboard, something that feels good typing on, not using the original Amiga 500 keyboard, but keep it possible to use it if I want. To be able to use a USB keyboard, I was planning to use this USB controller underneath the CIA chip, but I wasn't able to get it in the socket. The round pins in sockets for chips does not work very well. So change of plans. I will rather get myself one of the Amiga Store EU keyboards for the A500 and connect it the normal way. Let's just put the CII back in its place where it belongs and put the frame thrower back into the machine. To be able to turn the Amiga on and off, I'm changing into this power button that stays on or off. So after solder the cable to the new switch, I put it back on the front cover. And we have a power button for the Amiga. To connect the ATX power supply to the Amiga, I have this, and I've soldered these cables to the on-off button. So I'll just connect the new switch to this, and we will be able to turn it off and on by pressing the button on the tower. The ATX power supply itself will be this Pico PSU, which should be plenty enough to power this Amiga. For the front panel, I want to have some LEDs that show activity from the GoTek, which I plan to use as a floppy drive solution for this machine. I don't have plans for a real floppy drive in this Amiga. I just want to be able to read ADFs and stuff like that when I need it. Time to put everything in the case. This is how the extensions will look from the back. So I just connect the cables to the Amiga motherboard like this, and then I put this in place at the back. As I'm going to use the Pico PSU, I'll just printed a cover for the normal power supply opening and screw that in place. I then connected the wiring to the Amiga motherboard. I then noticed I missed something. The cable for the keyboard extension was too short, so I had to find some extensions for that. A bit hacky, but I would make a better solution later. After fighting with the mounting place for the GoTek for half an hour, I'm ready to put the front cover on. This 3D printed front cover have LEDs for power and for disk activity. The one I made for the GoTek. So I'll put that in place like this and behind my arms, and this is how it's going to look. And this is how it looks from behind. A bit cleaner than using a hacksaw and just jamming it in there. And a quick look from the front as well. I like how it looks. I will show it better later in the video. So a quick test to see that everything is still working. I've now connected an Amiga 500 keyboard. This is just temporary because it's worn out. But sound is working. I have booted from the GoTek. Everything is working. Ready for a demonstration. Demo time. Let's turn it on. So this is how the setup looks. Let's first get it online. And I'm using the Wi-Fi card on the Raspberry Pi to go online, like this. And the browsers for the Amiga is in a quite sad state. Remember, this is quite an old computer, so what I'm using for my online needs is AmiFox. I can visit most modern pages. Engadget is usually a safe place to visit. So here we can read all about modern tech I don't care about. Actually, I do, but not Samsung. But with the AmiFox, I have a semi-modern way to watch pages. The changes I did with adding extra chip memory was mostly to be able to use IMP, because a lot of mods played through IMP needs more chip memory to be playable. So let's start IMP. There. I did make an own episode about IMP, but just a quick recap. It is a mod player where you can play from the cloud. So your favorite and mod collection follows you around on every Amiga, and you have chat, and you have a software repository to download stuff from. So here I can play my favorite mods. Let's put on Jester Stardust. And this being a quite beefy Amiga, I can now start Personal Paint. No, Signe said I started a text editor. But I can jump back out and start Personal Paint, as I said I would. And as you can see, it's quite fast. So let's make some stunning art. Wow. So with this setup, the A500 is lightning fast. It's like using an A4000 with an 060 and a graphics card. But you all know this because I'm using the PiStorm. And one of the neat things about this setup is that with the frame thrower, I'm getting everything through the same HDMI cable. No need for those HDMI switchers like I had before. But just in case some PC people stop by to watch this video, let's show them a modern game. An RPG game that I know PC people like is Quake 2, one of the very newest 3D shooters, I think. It crashed, but that's how it is sometimes, so let's reboot. I think the reason it crashed was that I didn't quit IMP, but let's try it again. No, not system. Stuff. Games. Quake 2. It did work when I tested it prior to starting making this video. Now we have sound, so I think me not quitting IMP was the reason. And now we are playing Quake 2 on the Amiga 500. I think my capture solution had some lag. Anyway. Yes. Another good reason to add more chip memory is to get WHDLoad to work. And like it's set up now, we can run OCS games through WHDLoad. You need 1 megabyte of chip RAM to be able to do that. So if we take Lotus, Lotus 3. I always play Lotus with track number 4. Always. No idea why. Just something that stuck with me since I was a kid. So now we have jumped between RTG and the output from the OCS chipset, and it's going through the same capture device and the monitor without me needing to press any buttons. So this is a very nice setup to do streaming and recording and showing software off, which is kind of what my use will be, and using IMP and IRC. Oh, I'll never stop. I also added a GoTek to be able to play ADFs directly without going through WHDLoad. So let's put that in. And as you maybe saw, this light is a disk activity light for the GoTek. So let's add Rowcraft and reboot. Now Rowcraft should boot directly from the ADF. Cheers! It's nice to finally be able to show you this. It's been something I've worked on for quite long. Oh, this music, it's fantastic. I still think this is maybe the best Amiga game that is ever made. At least the one I've used, maybe not most time on, that is Settlers, but not far from. And the music from YouGuide, Lilidar, is just fantastic. I have played the new version as well, the one where they ported back to the Amiga. I think it's called DX, and it's a fantastic version as well. So if you haven't tried it, you should. But just be aware that you can't run it on an Amiga 500. It needs more chip memory. So I think you need, don't quote me on this, but I think you need an Amiga 600 or an AGA Amiga. Of course, that will work. One of the things a lot of people ask for is the sysinfo. So I've added the ADF to the GoTek, and now we are loading sysinfo from the fake floppy. So let's run a speed test. And as you can see, it's very fast. Even though this is the Raspberry 3A. My long-time plan for this Amiga is to be able to put a normal SSD in it and not use SD cards. I have constant troubles with SD cards killing its file system, and everything that can go wrong goes wrong with them. And the team behind PiStorm is working on a solution where you can, through USB, add hard drives, sound cards, keyboards, mouse, etc. So when that is out, my plan is to expand this to a proper big box Amiga with a 16-bit sound card and a hard drive, and just max it out. So I'm really looking forward to that. That only works with the Raspberry Pi 4, so I hope I'm able to make the Raspberry Pi 4 work stable as a PiStorm setup on my Amiga 500. Not every Amiga 500 takes the Raspberry Pi 4 for some reason. I don't know why. I managed to get mine to boot, but through an extension cable. So my hope is and it worked but crashed a lot. But my hope is if I don't have that extension cable, but just a small riser, that I'm able to do that. So I will of course show you how that goes when the time is ready. Also, my plan is, and that's closer in time I think, is to change this keyboard for something that is a bit newer. I plan to buy the Amiga Store EU keyboard, the black one, for this. Because this keyboard is worn out and it's not even flat. And so I could fix this up with a new membrane and stuff, and I probably will. But I want this to be my go-to Amiga going forward. This and the A1200. I'm going to switch between those. Before we end, I wanted to load up a demo. And let's line up 9 fingers. That's a good demo. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful evening. And we'll load up 9 fingers by Spaceballs. Cheers.